Hey, everybody. Good evening and welcome to our public meeting and hearing for the Michigan State University Draft Hazardous Waste Management Facility Operating License. Glad you could be with us here tonight. I know it's a beautiful night, but I appreciate you being on to contribute to this hearing and public meeting. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in the Environmental Support Division at EGLE, and I'll be the moderator for our meeting tonight and hanging out in the background and making sure things run smoothly. I'm just going to start off with a couple housekeeping guidelines before I turn it over to Jeremy in just a second here. All lines are going to be all lines will remain muted until we have the time for Q&A and for the hearings when we hear your comments. So we're going to keep muted for now. We're also recording this public meeting like we do with all of our public meetings, and you'll be able to find it up on our YouTube channel. If you missed part of it or somebody you know wanted to attend but couldn't, don't worry. We will send out a recording to everyone in the next day or so. You'll get a recording from us. It's also posted on our YouTube channel, like I said. Also, be sure to keep an eye on the chat because Christine Grossman is also here with me, and she's going to be dropping a couple links in the chat that you might find useful. We get to the Q&A portion, we're going to take questions. So during the presentation, if you have a question, you're welcome to drop it into the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar, and we'll get to those after the presentation. Also, after the presentation, if you'd rather voice your question, you can click the raise hand icon and I'll call on you and mute your line. It doesn't look like we have anybody on the phone only, but if we did, if you were just listening on the phone, you would hit #2 to raise your hand so you can ask your question over the phone. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy. So Jeremy, if you want to pop in here and share your screen, that will be good. All right, I'm seeing your screen. Looks good. Go ahead and take it away, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jim. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy Pepin. The purpose we're meeting tonight is to go over Michigan's Hazardous Waste Regulatory Authority, MSU's Hazardous Waste Storage Facility and its draft operating license, and then also go over an outline of the operating license renewal process. We will also have an opportunity for you to ask questions to the EGLE panel, and then we'll have a hearing at the end that you can provide comments on the official record for MSU's draft operating license. So with us tonight, we've got Dan Daly, the acting Permitting and Program Support Unit Supervisor, myself, Jeremy Pepin, the project's engineer, Joe Rogers, the project's geologist, and Christina Hebert, the environmental quality analyst. We also have our district inspectors for the facility, Brian Gronkowski and Todd Zinda with us. Just to run through, hi Brian. Just to run through what we'll be discussing tonight, we start with Michigan's regulatory authority and a description of MSU's facility and their operating license requirements. We'll go over a description of the renewal process for an operating license, and then wrap up the meeting with MSU's licensing history and a compliance summary. Between the meeting and the hearing, we'll have a question and answer session, and then the night will end with our formal public hearing. So to start, EGLE receives delegation from the United States Environmental Protection Agency to implement the National Hazardous Waste Management Program, known as Subtitle C of the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. EGLE also applies for and receives authorization from the EPA to implement an equivalent or more stringent hazardous waste management program. This is known as Part 111 of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. These programs are focused on the oversight and regulation of hazardous waste from their initial point of generation all the way until their final point of disposal. This is commonly referred to as cradle to grave regulation. Now I will pass it on to Todd to give us a description of the facility.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hello, everyone. My name's Todd Zinda. I'm one of the district inspectors for MSU, and I'm going to provide a description and of facility operations and a little background. The facility is located on the south side of MSU's campus near the intersection of 127 and Jolly Road. You can see it outlined in the blue rectangle in the lower left-hand corner of the slide. The facility is less than 5 acres and is completely enclosed by a fence and gate, making it a secure facility. The facility is comprised of 3 interconnected buildings. There's the East Storage Building on the far right, the Middle Storage Building, that's the L-shaped building that has a blue roof, and then the West Storage Building on the west side. The East and West buildings are authorized to store up to 7,900 gallons of hazardous waste and will be described in the next slides. The facility is constructed as a central storage location for hazardous waste and liquid industrial byproduct waste generated by MSU owned and operated properties. While the majority of the waste comes from MSU's main campus, some waste is received from off-site campus locations. This facility is only authorized for storage and consolidation of waste. Any treatment or disposal of MSU waste is conducted at an off-site location. Before we move on, just to give you a little background, the Middle Storage Building, that's an unlicensed area. It is used for storage of RCRA empty containers. So they're empty containers under the RCRA regulations, less than 3%. And they also use that area for storage of supplies of new drums and containers. No hazardous waste or liquid industrial byproduct is stored in the Middle Storage Building. So next slide, please. So here's a schematic of the East Storage Building. Waste is received at the loading dock that's on the upper end of the schematic. The loading dock is enclosed and has secondary containment. The East Storage Building is used for both storage and consolidation of compatible waste. The building is equipped with a fire suppression system and an organic vapor alarm system. The authorized areas within the East Storage Building include the consolidation room, the lab pack room, and the storage room, which I'll give a little background on. All 3 areas have secondary containment, and that includes a floor sealed with a polyurea coating. It's basically like a coating. If there's a spill, they can clean it up easily and doesn't soak into the concrete. The first room, the consolidation room, is room 100. That's the biggest room in this portion of the facility. It has a 3,480 gallon capacity and is equipped with 3 fume hoods that are used for consolidation of waste into 55-gallon drums. The fume hoods are ducted to the outside ambient air and are permitted by the EGLE Air Quality Division. Containers are only opened when they're consolidating waste, and then when they're just in storage, they're closed and secured. The next room we're going to talk about is the lab pack room. That's room 120. It's on the right-hand side of the schematic. This room has a licensed capacity of 200 gallons. It's used for smaller containers, typically less than 5 gallons. This waste usually is usually laboratory waste, which would include unused or expired laboratory chemicals. Small containers of waste may also be consolidated in this room under a fume hood where they consolidate waste into a 5-gallon container, which is then eventually poured into a 55-gallon container in the consolidation room. Waste that cannot be consolidated is segregated by hazard class and compatibility and eventually packed for offsite disposal by a third-party vendor. And then the last room is the storage room. That's on the bottom of the schematic, room 130. That room has a 750-gallon capacity and is used as a drying room for small RECRA empty bottles or containers. And during recent inspections, this room is typically empty. There's not a whole lot going on in there, but they are licensed to use that. Next slide, please. And then the other portion of the licensed facility is the West Storage Building. This building is authorized to store up to 3,470 gallons and is primarily used as an overflow for hazardous waste containers from the East Storage Building. So if the East Storage Building filled up and they reach capacity, they might move some containers over to the West Storage Building. This building is only used for storage of waste. There's no consolidation activities taking place in this area. The West Storage Building is also used for storage of universal waste and liquid industrial byproduct or used oil that may be generated at MSU's campus. This area is also equipped with a secondary containment that includes a floor sealed with a polyurea coating, and the building's equipped with a fire suppression and alarm system. So now I'll pass it back to Jeremy and he'll give you some more information about the license.
Good deal. Thanks, Todd. So going over the operating license requirements for MSU, we'll start with the general requirements. These are seen throughout all licenses Michigan gives out. And I'll just be going down the list. So MSU must ensure that all waste managed at the facility or to be managed at the facility have been properly characterized and are acceptable to be managed at the facility. This is generally done by generator knowledge and comparison to their waste-specific profiles that are constantly kept at the facility. Then we have the inspection schedule. They are required to consistently inspect the facility to ensure that there are no faults in equipment or failures in or errors in processing. An example of the different inspections that are done at this facility: daily, they do fume hood inspections and exhaust fan inspections. They do weekly inspections of the storage area foundations for cracks and or degradation. And then they also do monthly inspections on their fire alarm system. MSU personnel are also required to keep up-to-date certifications and have initial trainings. Examples of those are 40-hour HAZWOPers, HAZWOPer being the Hazardous Waste Operation and Emergency Response training, and they are also required to recertify that annually. Emergency preparedness, prevention, and the contingency plan go hand in hand. They must keep a preparedness and prevention plan at the facility that ensures that their operations minimize or eliminate the chances for any sort of emergency situation, whether it be a fire or a spill of hazardous waste. The site's plan itself, the site's plan includes things such as an alarm system that can detect various hazardous situations, such as a fire, unauthorized intrusion, or hazardous vapors. In terms of the contingency plan, they are also required to keep a plan on site that outlines the procedures that would be undergone if an emergency situation were to arise. And this plan includes information such as waste managed at the facility, how to interact with them, contacts for emergency response personnel from federal, state, and local levels, and evacuation procedures. In terms of record keeping and reporting, the site is required to maintain an operating record until the final closure of the facility. And this contains various information from waste manifests and the waste profiles mentioned earlier to the, sorry, lost track. Those things. And then we've also got requirements for a closure plan. This outlines the procedures that must be taken to ensure that the facility is closed in a way that minimizes, reduces, or eliminates the need for any follow-up maintenance or oversight of the facility itself. In terms of site-specific requirements, the site manages containers and must comply with the performance standards associated with that. Some examples of that are making sure that the containers are compatible with the wastes that they are holding, and also that incompatible wastes are segregated to a point that they can't interact. This facility has environmental monitoring requirements in terms of their ambient air monitoring program. This is in association with the air quality division and the fume hoods that are at the facility. And then they have waivers for groundwater and soil monitoring due to the fact that everything that is done at the facility or their hazardous waste operations are done within an enclosed building. And then to wrap it up, they also have corrective action requirements in terms of if there were to be a spill or release of hazardous waste at the facility, they can properly manage that and clean it up before it becomes a risk to the environment or human health. At this time, there are no open corrective actions at the facility. Moving on to an overview of the renewal process. So everything starts with the facility submitting their renewal application and that being distributed to the appropriate staff and agencies for review. This review starts with a completeness review. That is a big picture, making sure everything's there, and a large section like the waste analysis plan or contingency plan aren't missing. And from there, we move on to the first informational meeting that was held at the start of this year. And that kicks off the public participation program, or excuse me, public participation in general for the renewal. And that spans throughout the whole renewal process, where the public can comment on the application, or in terms of what we're talking about today, the draft renewal license. And then moving on to the technical review from there, that is looking at the specific parts of the application and getting down to the nitty-gritty and making sure that everything meets the regulatory requirements. And during this whole process, the project team will be visiting the facility to make sure everything that we get on paper matches what's actually happening in real life. From the technical review, we normally end up sending out a technical notice of deficiency. This doesn't mean that there's major faults in the application itself. It could simply mean that we need a bit more information than what's provided, or maybe just a better explanation of what they had sent. From the technical review and a technically adequate determination, we have a public comment period that starts. Sorry, I missed the portion where we draft the draft license. After the technical review is done and they receive a technically adequate determination, a draft license is prepared and distributed to the public for public comment. So in terms of this license, the public comment period started in August and will be ending next week. And then after that finishes up, we'll draft a response to any comments that we get. And that covers any sort of changes or changes to the draft license or responses to those comments. And then everything gets wrapped up with a notice of final decision, whether that be renewal of the license or denial of that renewal. For MSU's facility, they were initially licensed in 2000 and applied for a renewal license that was approved in 2010. And then they had an expansion application that was submitted and approved in 2014, and that they had a timely submittal of their renewal application before the, before the end of their current license. They're allowed to continue operations under their current license until the new one is approved. Then I will pass it on to Brian to go over the compliance summary.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that. So I'm a hazardous waste inspector for EGLE, and I've been doing inspections. I actually got hired back in the year 2000. I like to say the turn of the century. But my predecessor was responsible for MSU, and I went along on a few of those inspections right up through 2015, and that is the year that I took over inspections. We do annual inspections at minimum, and we look at the compliance conditions with the permit, as well as all the different paperwork that they're required to keep and containment areas. If any issues are identified, then we provide a compliance communication or a violation notice if appropriate. But Michigan State has been in great shape, I would say, during that period. And I think that it's important to also mention that the US EPA also does an annual inspection. So there's quite a bit of oversight here at this facility. Next slide there. So if there was a violation, normally we provide 30 days to correct it. Currently, the facility has no outstanding violations, and I wanted to give out a shout out to Brian and Stephanie, because I do see you guys are here today. But as far as compliance goes, yeah, obviously the staff there works hard to stay in compliance with the permit, and we are the ones that are kind of serving as oversight as well as the EPA. So next slide, you'll be able to find out from Jim how to stay connected. Jim?
Hey, thanks, Brian. Sorry, I was having
Sure.
trouble with my microphone. Okay. All right. So, hey, thanks, team. I'm going to bring actually the PowerPoint back to me, and we're going to start taking questions. So if anyone has a question, you can go ahead and drop it in the Q&A box or raise your hand. So I'm going to have our panelists go ahead and turn their cameras on so everybody can see you. And if we have questions, we can turn it over. So there is no questions in the Q&A box right now. I'll tell you that. We'll give it a minute or so here, because there's a little lag. I understand it's kind of a small group of people attending today, so don't be shy. If you have a question, go ahead and throw it in there, or like I said, raise your hand. All right, so Jay, looks like you have a question. You're unmuted. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. I was wondering, is there any nuclear hazardous waste at this facility, please?
Whoever wants to take that can go ahead.
Yeah, not at this storage facility.
So there's not. Okay. That's an easy answer. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, Jay, you have your hand up again. I'm just gonna, did you have another question or was that still up from before? I might have forgotten to turn it, push it down.
But I could ask a follow-up question.
Go
So-
right ahead. Yeah. No, nobody else has any questions, so go right ahead.
So the waivers for the groundwater monitoring, so the groundwater is never, ever, ever checked?
This is Joe Rogers. I'm the geologist on the site. At the current time, no. Historically, they did do some groundwater monitoring, and I think as Jeremy mentioned, more recently they moved everything so that all the operations were inside, and so yeah, they no longer have to do groundwater monitoring because all the operations are inside, and any release that did occur, would be controlled by the containment and would be visible and has no risk of getting out into the environment. So there's no groundwater monitoring required. So currently, no, there isn't any groundwater monitoring required. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, Joe, and if I may add to that, if an inspector like Todd or myself were to observe any type of releases, that's when kind of a corrective action type measure would kick in, and they would look at what types of soil or groundwater sampling would be needed.
Right. I think somebody mentioned if there were a release, then that would prompt an investigation where groundwater would likely be looked at.
All right. Thanks. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. I want to remind everybody too that in the chat, Christine put a lot of stuff in there. We're not expected to read it all tonight, of course. If you missed anything, don't worry. She's going to put it all in a follow-up email. But if you go to the very top of that chat, and I'll ask Christine to put it in there again, there is the website for MSU's the storage facility webpage. And now that page has got all the things specific to this site that was mentioned, including, I think, the draft license. Is that correct, guys? That's up there. Should be.
Yep, that'll be there. And then also these slides will as well.
Yes. So we're putting everything up there. Christina can put that in because a couple people might have come on a little late and didn't get that message. So, oh, there it is. So thank you, Christine. Okay. I am not seeing any other questions, and that's fine. Again, we'll give information on how to ask questions after this hearing, who to contact when we're done. So if you come up with something you want to ask later, you can. With that, what we're going to do is move into the official hearing portion of the night. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Daly. He's our hearings officer. And Dan, you there? Everybody else can turn your cameras off and go ahead and mute yourself.
Thanks,
There
Jim.
he is.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Jim.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead. You do these slides. Let me know when you want to switch them because I got control here. The slides.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to be your hearings officer tonight. Again, I'm Dan Daly. I'm the acting supervisor for the Permitting and Program Support Unit within EGLE's Materials Management Division. So the difference between a public hearing and what we just concluded as a public informational meeting is that we are answering informal comments during the informational meeting, and the hearing is an opportunity to make a formal comment on the record. So same kind of program as what we used for the public informational meeting. You can enter something in the Q&A or the chat, or raise your hand using the phone to make a comment. The comment will be recorded, and we're continuing to record. And instead of responding to you tonight orally, we'll take your comments into the record and make a written response in a written response to comments document. So for the public comment tonight, the things that we can consider for the official record include technical mistakes that are within the renewal application, any non-compliance of the renewal application with the rules, and things like facility traffic, odors, and other effects on the surrounding community. So in this case, we're relying on you as the community members to let us know what's going on in the community that may affect you as part of this renewal application. Within these categories, we can consider these items. Some of the things we can't consider are whether or not the renewal for the licensed facility is popular, whether we like it or not. Topics unrelated to the facility or renewal can't be considered on the official record either. An example comment that we could accept would be facility operations have increased the amount of semi-trucks in the area and subsequently increased traffic delays. Next slide, please. So if you want to submit formal written comments into the record, they can be submitted via email to Jeremy Pepin using his email address here, or you can use snail mail and mail a paper copy of your comments to Jeremy using this address. Written comments must be postmarked no later than September 23rd, 2024, and must include your name, address, email address, a concise statement of the basis for the comments, and any supporting relevant facts upon which the comments are based. Thank you. So for the public hearing, again, we are recording the hearing tonight and we'll be maintaining it as part of the public record. The recording will be shared with MSU subscribers and anyone on the official facility-specific mailing list. Again, the public comment period runs from August 9th, 2024 to the close of business, 5 p.m. on September 23rd, 2024. EGLE will make a final decision on the application and draft license after the close of the public comment period. After the close of the public comment period, we'll issue a notice of final decision and response to comments document to anyone who provides a formal comment tonight or during the public participation comment period ending September 23rd. Everyone who's subscribed to the MSU mailing list and anyone on the official mailing list for the department. Following the meeting and hearing and a final decision, all of our documents and resources will be posted to the website and resources will be available. And the website is michigan.gov/MSU-HWSF. So during the formal hearing, we will not be responding to your comments. Comments are for the official record and will be reviewed and considered by EGLE prior to a final decision. Elected officials are invited to speak first, then others will be called upon in the order requests are received. Before providing comment, please state and spell your first and last name. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes so all who are interested have the opportunity to speak. If you get to the end of your 5 minutes and you just feel like you haven't been able to express all of your comments, you can raise your hand again. And if we get through all the rest of the other commenters, we can call on you again and you can finish your comments. Okay, again, here's the ways that you can make a comment tonight during the formal hearing. And so with that, I think we're ready to hear comments.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dan. So I'm just going to have whoever's here to take note of the comments to go ahead and turn your cameras on to be listening in. So I don't know if Jeremy or Todd and team want to go ahead and turn your cameras on, listen in. We will now open it up for comment. When you subscribe, there was an option to check a box if you wanted to make a comment. Nobody did that. So when you registered, I didn't have anybody that said they wanted to make a comment ahead of time, and that's fine. So at this point, what we'll do is open it up to anyone on the line here today that wants to make a comment. I'll give you like 5 minutes, like Dan said. Just go ahead and raise your hand. If we had somebody on the phone, which doesn't look like we do, you'd hit #2. So we'll give it a minute, open it up. If anybody wants to make an official comment for the record, for the team here, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised to make an official comment tonight. And that is fine. Like Dan said in his statement, there are other ways to make a comment through written means, which we'll follow up with here in just a minute. So, okay, with that being no comments, I guess we can go ahead and close it out. So, Dan, I'll let you go ahead and close out this portion of the hearing.
All right. Thank you, Jim. So let's just note the time here real quick. So yeah, since we haven't received any comments, it is currently 6:37 p.m. and we are closing the formal hearing at this time. If you would like to submit written comments into the record, the public comment period runs through September 23rd. So you still have an opportunity to review information and send us written comments. You can find that additional information on the website, michigan.gov/msu-hwsf. And you can contact Jeremy Pepin with any questions you might have. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan. And like you said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You got a few more days to make a written comment. Christine will be following up with an email with all these details, lots of good links and stuff for you to check out, and all the instructions that we basically just gave you throughout the webinar today. So I want to thank the team here for a good presentation and listening in to comments or questions that came in. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. I know it's a beautiful evening, and it means a lot that you attend these public meetings and provide us with questions and comments. If you don't have any, that's fine too, but it's very important that you listen in and hear what we're doing. It's an important part of the process. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.